390 to downtown. Stevenson, 48 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Ryan is 36 minutes, 95th to downtown. Southbound Lakeshore Drive is heavy Montrose to North Avenue. That's traffic. I'm Jim Telemonte on AM 560, The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. Your official Chicagoland weather forecast from the 1 Hour Heating and Air Conditioning Weather Center. Cloudy, breezy, little rain and snow mixed. A high near 40. 38 at O'Hare, 37 Midway, where we have had snow flurries this morning. And checking those numbers on Wall Street, the Dow up 97 in very early trading. Your next news is at 9. Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by Secure Retirement Radio with host Raj Shah. Sunday mornings at 7 on AM 560, The Answer.
I think I had that for dinner.
Res judicata?
Res judicata. It was wonderful on the lasagna.
Yeah, did you have the broccolini with it?
Yeah, it was.
It's
it was
good. That's the way you want to have it. Yeah, it complements it nicely. No, but it's the finality. Okay. So not necessarily double jeopardy. But I asked my criminal defense attorney friend about my point that how do you relitigate the case and not implicate Kim Foxx for perpetrating a fraud on the court? Or you don't relitigate the case because there was finality per the forfeiture of his bond for no particular reason, or no particular bad act other than the underlying act, and some sort of half-assed community service he did at Rainbow Push.
Sleepover. He took a little nap.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to, you can't do one without the other. Is my point. And his response to me, how do you adjudicate again, Smollett again, without implicating Fox? His answer was, it's Cook County. Okay.
Oh.
Well, so I mean that's
an answer.
It's a political/legal answer, but it's the reality on the ground, I suppose. All right, switching gears. This is interesting to note in advance of the South Carolina primary and with the prospect perhaps of Trump versus Bolshevik Bernie matchup. More than 1/3 of black voters surveyed expressed the desire for someone else to run for president.
Wow.
Lack of enthusiasm among black voters would be a real problem for whoever the Democrat nominee is. This survey conducted by the Political Action Committee, Black PAC, reported in Politico, found that while black voters are largely supportive of the Democrat Party, aligned most with its values, more than half feel the party is not paying close enough attention to the black community. And they argue specifically, something that a lot of Republicans said was happening, Democrats got too distracted by impeachment to focus on issues that actually matter to black voters. Their bread and butter pocketbook issues, quality of life issues. So I wonder if we'll see perhaps some of the atrophying of black enthusiasm present, not so much in the distribution of the black vote, but in the turnout on Saturday, and if that might be a bellwether for November, depending on who the nominee is. For more on the topic, we're pleased to be joined by Michael Goodwin, New York Post columnist and Fox News contributor. Michael, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
So what about that? What about the state of play here, even if Biden is able to stave off elimination for one more election, that you've got a real problem in stitching together something that looks like a winning coalition for the Democrats?
Well, I think that's right, but I would enlarge the picture. I think that in this sense, maybe the black voters are the canary in the coal mine, because I think a lot of normal Democratic voters are feeling ignored by the party. Look, I think there's no question that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer made a huge mistake in putting all the chips on impeachment. They refused to negotiate with the president over anything serious, border control, even the budget, anything like that. And so they went down this road of radicalizing the entire party. Now, you can say that Pelosi was following AOC and the squad, or they were all sort of looking ahead and seeing, where the candidates for president were going. Nonetheless, I think they abdicated their own leadership, threw in with the radicals, and then radicalized the entire party. And this, to me, is a failure of leadership on Pelosi and Schumer's part. They are in Congress. They had a duty to work for the betterment of the country, not just throw stones at the window. But that's what they chose to do. I think it is now hurting the entire party. The entire party sort of speaks with this one radical voice. And then you see that when you apply that window, that view of the party to the presidential candidates, none of them have this huge support. I mean, the great irony is they're all out there, Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Bloomberg, especially those three, and even Biden, attacking Sanders for not having a broad enough tent. That's true, but his tent is broader than theirs. So each of them, I think, is guilty in the same way. Don't forget, they all raised their hands for decriminalizing immigration. They all, raised their hands for higher taxes, for some version of the Green New Deal. So the difference between them is narrow. It's not a huge gulf. Even Bloomberg, whom I had higher hopes for, has thrown in with them. I mean, he's surrendered and apologized for all the good things he did as mayor, as though he wants now to be taking credit for being a good mayor, but he wants to subtract from that all the things he did that were central to what he did, which was he talks about, I raised taxes on the rich. He did not. He raised taxes on everybody, everybody. And it was the only raised tax he could raise was through the property tax. And so it went up by 18.5% in 1 year. Now, I live in New York City, and I can tell you my property taxes have gone up 400% since Bloomberg started that. So is that a good thing when people talk about New York City becoming unaffordable? Well, the property taxes are fundamental to that problem. So my point is that each of these candidates has failed in the way they're blaming Sanders for failing for. But I think that's the problem with this whole party. It has radicalized itself. It has forgotten the middle class and the working class, which is Donald Trump's bread and butter. So this is shaping up again as Hillary 2-0 without Hillary.
And Bernie, he might be chosen to lead the party that he's never joined because he's an independent. But let's talk about Sunday's 60 Minutes interview. He couldn't come up with that. How are you going to pay for all this free stuff? And he didn't have an answer. Don't you think they'll attack him tonight and try to pinpoint him to answer that question finally?
I do, and I think that the Bloomberg people have already signaled as much that they're attacking. Looking back to the last debate, I mean, my assessment of it was that they were all running to be the alternative to Bernie.
Right.
So Buttigieg and Klobuchar, Warren, they're all trying. No one was trying to overtake Bernie. They were all trying to be number two, or the alternative to him. And I think it didn't work for any of them, for various reasons. Warren, everyone believes, had a good debate, but it hasn't helped her. So I think that this time they're all going to go right at Bernie instead of at each other as much. And so I think that you
as if this field cares about who has an idea of what to pay for or how to pay for all the things they're promising. I mean, they attack Bernie Sanders for Medicare for all or everything else he's promised under the sun. I mean, you turn right around and you say the same thing to every person on that panel. I mean, nobody in that party, much less on that stage, cares about paying for anything. It's all the magical thinking that you can just continue to extract blood from billionaire stones, right? I mean, come on.
Well, and look, the mere talk of tax hikes, I mean, it takes you right back almost to Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale. This idea that we're going to raise taxes, all of them are for tax increases. Now, if they really think that the tax increases won't have an effect on the economy, then I don't know where they've been. I mean, the history of this is pretty clear. We can and should have a more detailed conversation about the debt and deficit. But nonetheless, if you think you're going to raise taxes and not extract a price out of the economy for that, and so those very working people, again, the fracking, right, the anti-coal mining, all of those manufacturing jobs that that have been created under Trump's tax and regulatory policies, 500,000 manufacturing jobs are at risk for every Democrat on that stage. How do you win Pennsylvania with that kind of talk? How do you win Wisconsin, Michigan? It befuddles me, and yet yes, of course, Bernie is maybe the most extravagant of all, But as again, I say, it's a difference in degree, not in kind.
Well, it's interesting because there seems to be divided opinion on Bernie and his electoral viability. Dean Obadiah at CNN, Jim Vanderhyde at Axios. Bernie Sanders could absolutely win this November. The evidence doesn't back Democrats' panic that Bernie can't win. And the panic is largely coming from inside the House, from people like Jonathan Chait. But nonetheless, there is those that are making the argument that Bernie can absolutely win this race.
Look, if you're one of two finalists, yes, you definitely have a chance, and events can unfold in peculiar ways, and who knows, maybe the deep state will pull another fast one. But you would have to say that the odds don't favor that, and it's a little bit like pulling an inside straight flush. You need that one magic card, and I think that as you mentioned, the House members are worried. The Senate, that they feel like this is the year they should be able to take the Senate, at least narrowly, because of the number of Republican seats that are up and the number of close races. So if you have a weak top of the ticket, that definitely could be a domino for all of the House and Senate races, gubernatorial races. I mean, there's a lot riding on this, and I think pretty soon it'll be every man and woman for him and herself. That if Bernie is the nominee, I suspect a lot of people will find it very hard. Maybe the donors will give more to Pelosi and Schumer than they would to Bernie because they're trying to save something if they see a debacle coming at the top.
There's an interesting comment by Megan McArdle of Washington Post about Sanders. She tweeted, most likely Sanders is a committed socialist who wants the end of capitalism, but runs on the farthest left platform he thinks he can get away with. He would go further if possible. This is what his life history suggests, and I'm bemused watching smart people suggest otherwise. Well, part of it is he doesn't really suggest otherwise. There are other people suggesting otherwise on his behalf, trying to make him more palatable to the people that are concerned. But Bernie is pretty straightforward, per his comments on Castro, for example, that Megan McArdle is absolutely right.
It's funny. People, a lot of Bernie supporters will say, well, he's so authentic. He's been saying the same thing for 40 years. That's why I trust him. I don't trust somebody who hasn't changed in 40 years. I mean, look at your own life. My goodness. Is there anybody who doesn't change over 40 years? You see the world quite differently in most cases. That Bernie doesn't, that he still embraces some of that stuff. I don't see it as a matter of authenticity. I see it as somewhat frightening myself.
He is Michael Goodwin, New York Post columnist, Fox News contributor. Michael, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you both.
Take care.
Thanks. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to Dan and Amy on your smartphone. Download the AM560 mobile app today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
The following is a paid political announcement.
In 2020, we will decide the direction of our nation for decades to come. Do you want more government in your life or more freedom? As a veteran, Jeannie Ives stands on the side of freedom. She took an oath to protect and defend our Constitution. Now, our American values are under attack. Our economic system, the rule of law, and our ability to create and pursue opportunity. In Illinois, Jeannie spent 7 years fighting corruption and reckless spending because every dime government spends comes out of your pocket. In Washington,